Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the US Futures Weekly Chart Analysis for the week ending 8th of December 2023. First chart is the US Dollar Index Futures, as it normally is. Put some lines in quickly. You can see where we're up to. This was the highs of the range, and there was a breakdown more recently just below that. And then below that was this level here, which caught the market here and here. And you can see the market's pulled back within the range of this little period of consolidation here. It's found support and it's pushed up to the highs of this range this week. Now, the little tail on top is only small, but it suggests that the market did push above this level at 104, but it did encounter at least some supply, and price settled back to close right at the level in the relative safety, because supply would have eased a little bit as it pulled back to this level again. So whether the market's going to be strong enough to continue higher, it's debatable. The next level higher is only just above it through here at 104.4. You'll have to watch the market early next week and just see what its intent is. It may be that the market just comes back again and spends some more time in this level in the relative safety of the previous trading prior to any challenge higher. And it might be that's all the market's got, and maybe it'll head lower from here. But you'll just have to watch the response next week, and you'll probably learn a fair bit early next week. I probably lean towards it coming back, at least initially, and then we'll see if it's got any strength following that. One thing to note, though, was that this market was strong this week. It pushed higher pretty much all week, and that will have put almost every other market under some pressure this week. So any other markets we look at that show any sort of strength was facing a headwind to some degree, and that should really be highlighted, that other strong markets really should be noted because they have an underlying strength. E-mini S&P, this is S&P 500 Index Futures, and this market did close quite positively this week. Volume was increased considerably and above average, so supply was being drawn out. The positive close up near the highs of the week suggests this market was strong. It was able to absorb the supply and maintain a position up here adjacent to 4,600. So any weakness in the US dollar will probably see this market at least attempt to move higher. This was a pretty good effort considering the strength in the US dollar, and I would be keeping an eye on this market, and if there's any weakness in the US dollar, this market's likely to at least attempt to move higher. US Treasury 10-year note futures, and they did pull back this week. There was a bit of momentum in the market, and it attempted to move higher initially, but it was always likely that this market was going to come back a little bit after the gains the previous week, and it did so in the end. Volume wasn't particularly high, so not much supply was being drawn out, and that probably leaves this market well placed to push higher in response, especially if there's some weakness in the US dollar, at least early in the week. So a good chance for this market to respond higher again, particularly if the US dollar shows any sort of weakness. Copper price futures were a little more volatile this week. Here's the lows of the range. This is the trading in the shadow of the range. The next level comes through here, and the level above that through here. And price pulled back pretty violently this week, and the close well off the lows suggests that buying support did emerge. Volume was reduced, but it remained a little above average, so there was still quite a bit of activity in the market, and the close well off the week's low suggests that buying support did come in, and any weakness in the US dollar this week will probably see price attempt to move higher and possibly come up to this level where the highs of the range above it are. and it's more like a zone in particular, that level up there, which may require, if there's a challenge to it, a pretty serious effort to push through. But we'll get to that when the market attempts a challenge. Gold price futures, the lows of the range come through here. There's strength in the background. Price attempted to push away, and I'm not exactly sure what happened here, and it's probably not worth your effort trying to find out. It's unlikely you'll get a true and correct answer. Just go with what you can see. The market attempted to thrust higher. It encountered some selling pressure and pushed down. Now, volume was actually reduced for the week. It was above average, fair enough, but it wasn't overwhelming and ridiculously high. So it wasn't overwhelming supply. The market is gyrating for whatever reason. It has come back to a logical level, the highs of this bar here, where the market responded positively to this 3-bar shakeout, came back, tested, pushed higher, everything makes sense, comes back to this logical level, and that's where it's settled this week. Now, it's been an ordeal, there's no doubt. So the market will want to come back and reset and recover from what's happened, and it'll probably trade sideways for a week or two. That's the general expectation, and try to recover from its ordeal. So I would expect the market will trade something like that, perhaps over a few weeks before there's any serious challenge. Now, if the market does encounter ongoing supply, and there's some chance it will, then I expect the market to find increased support adjacent to this trading here to the left. So price would come back to this sort of level and attempt to support there, which isn't far below where it is now. But if it can recover around or just above the 2000 level, it would be a sign of underlying strength for the market. Silver price futures, the lows of the range come through here, and it's a bit of a messy chart now, and it probably reflects the increased retail trading in this market. You can see a similar thing where price accelerated higher. It didn't have the charge above the previous high that gold had, but it did certainly have the response lower. Once again, volume was actually reduced. It was above average, there's no doubt, but it was actually reduced. So it looks far worse than it was. It was an exaggerated move lower. And in this market especially, that's sort of understandable with the increased retail component. Prices come back adjacent to this, trading to the left where the market consolidated previously. So that makes some sense. It's a little disappointing the market didn't consolidate here where gold did, but that just shows the increased volatility in this market. There's a decent chance price will be able to consolidate in this sort of level through here, similar to gold, putting in some recovery sort of bars, some testing for supply, attempting to absorb any supply that's drawn out before there's any attempt to move higher. Like crude price futures have been a bit all over the place more recently. There was a breakdown here. This was a breakdown bar there. Price attempted to consolidate, and it looked like it was going to successfully do so until this bar turned up and threw the cat amongst the pigeons, and that's caused price to move lower. It was sort of expected once this bar turned up, and price is now attempting to consolidate adjacent to this congestion to the left here. And that's a pretty logical place for the market to make an attempt to consolidate. The close well off the lows this week on an increased volume, but only just a little above average, suggests there was an attempt to support the market. Now, whether this will be successful or not, we'll have to wait and see. Looked like it was going to be successful over here, and it didn't end up doing so. So I've lost a little bit of confidence in this market, at least in the near term. And when there's a lack of confidence in the market, you should just step aside for a while until things become more logical. A logical market is always one where the moves are far more consistent and understandable. The Euro US dollar currency future, and the lows were generated down here. We found some good bottoming and the market accelerated higher. It was a nice neat acceleration and the market showed clearly that supply was low and that allowed price to push higher a second time. You've got a shelf through here which caught the market and price has now pulled back to this level. So nice logical trading, makes sense. And when you compare that to the other currency markets, you gain a really clear understanding on where they're all sitting at this point in time. Now, the market's come back to a logical level. If there's any weakness in the US dollar, I expect the market to respond higher, at least to some degree, and we'll follow it from there. I don't expect there's going to be a great deal of weakness emerge here. If it did, there's probably some support to be found in this little zone here. So if the market did need to come back because there was ongoing strength in the US dollar, this is where price will probably attempt to find further support, and then obviously adjacent to the previous lows. Next chart is the British pound currency futures, similar to the euro in some degree. It was a little bit weaker here. You remember the euro only came back very shallow. This was a bit more deep. The price did accelerate higher, although not with the same vigour as the euro. You've got a shelf that comes through here. The price attempted to challenge it but did fail. Now the euro's at this level and this market is still hanging up a little bit higher. So it's a little bit stronger relative to the euro at this point in time. And that allows a little bit of room, if there is some strength in the US dollar, for the market to trade in recovery mode above this shelf. And if there is weakness in the US dollar next week, I expect the market will come up and issue some sort of challenge, or at least trade adjacent to the previous highs through there. Aussie dollar currency futures, similar to the other markets, formed a bottom down here. This market was a little awkward and unclear, but eventually it came together. It was the push out. This market pulled back rather deeply compared to the other two, but it did still push out in the end. And the market's made a move back towards the old trading range to the left through here. Prices pushed into it, and with the strength in the US dollar this week, prices come back all the way to this breakout line, but did close back at this level, the lows of the old trading range. So that makes some sense. If there is weakness in the US dollar next week, I expect this market to bounce up. And if there's not, attempt to find support within this zone here. Bitcoin futures. Bitcoin futures really accelerated higher this week. I suggested last week that supply would probably ease to some degree when price moved above the 40,000 level, and the volume this week being relatively low, considering the strength of the move, suggests that that's exactly what's happened. Prices gapped up here over the $40,000 level and then it thrust itself higher, and in doing so, it didn't encounter very much supply. Otherwise, volume would have been much higher. And that allowed prices to continue pushing right up to the highs of the range. Now, after a strong move like this, the market will normally encounter some supply. So I would expect the market to test for supply at least for a period next week before any sort of attempt to challenge higher. There is still some supply to be found up to the $50,000 level. But after that, got to say that the higher price goes, the less supply appears to be present, at least from the left. The only supply you'll encounter then is profit taking and short sales, because to the left, supply gets pretty thin as price moves above 50,000. So I would expect a test for supply. It may even take a couple of weeks to test for supply, just going sideways roughly, similar in some respects to this period of bullish absorption that we were looking at last week. The price has really accelerated higher this week after a little gap higher. I don't expect that gap will be filled. It's a 50% chance or slightly less that gap will be filled in the near term. There's no trading to the immediate left of it, so it's an outside gap and is less likely to be filled in the near term. So look for some testing for supply at least early next week, and then if there's no supply present or very little, perhaps a challenge to this level just above the 45,000 level. Let's finish up on the US dollar index futures just quickly. Here is the breakdown line in the past. This is the older breakdown line, which has proved it's fairly strong. You can see how price traded against it previously, and that's where the market's pushed up to this week after seeing some strength emerge the previous week. Now, the little tail on top is suggesting that the market wasn't willing to issue a challenge to this level last week at 104 or thereabouts. I'm really unsure as to whether the market has got the strength in it to push back up higher to the next level. That remains to be seen. If it's not able to, the most likely outcome is an attempt to test for supply while it builds up some strength. But if weakness does emerge, I would expect this isn't a particularly strong level, and it's going to be much stronger down here. So if there's real weakness emerge, this is where the price is heading for sure, at least to test it for strength. If the weakness isn't too bad, a test for supply, which means the market will move lower initially and then recover back to this level and sit around the 104 again by the end of the week. So when the weakness does emerge and price initially pulls back, that may allow some of these other associated markets just to push higher before they then have to move into consolidation mode, inverse to this market. So there's a fair chance those other markets will move higher early next week, but I'm expecting this market will then recover somewhat, and then those other markets may have to just consolidate wherever they moved. Okay, that's my lot. Thanks for your time. See you again next week. See ya.